Great, thank you very much indeed, Mark. Well, good afternoon, everyone, from a really wet, windy Wales, but at least we're out of lockdown for a week now and seeing what happens to us and our industry of tourism in this country. Now, this afternoon, what I'd like to do is just set a scene in the context of gateway towns, look at some tourism trends, look at the implications for gateway towns, towns that are portals to our national park and national scenic and amenity regions, highlight a few case studies, and then just call out the destination management imperative. So in terms of trends, end of tourism as we know it, well, if we look at what was happening pre-COVID, then really what we've seen is in many ways, COVID-19 has accelerated many of existing trends that had their roots in the few years before 2020. And some of the things that were happening then are amplified now and have big implications for the subject we're interested in this afternoon. I'm just looking at a few of those trends that were already happening. Well, we were all aware of the issues associated with over-tourism, with residents of Venice, of Barcelona, even Keswick in the Lake District, shouting, tourists go home, we're overcrowded. In Copenhagen, they had a new tourism strategy called the End of Tourism as we know it. 2018, the Barcelona Declaration called for better places to live, will be better places to visit. And we saw consumers beginning to make comments about their concerns in the industry, not just about the way in which they were treated or were being received in some destinations, but the fact that they were concerned about the tourism industry having a lot of sameness. And the picture in the bottom of this series of photographs is actually the first page of the visitor book at the Wordsworth Museum in the Lake District last year. And it reads, we're all so bored, we're all so tired of everything. So clearly, there was some writing on the wall for us all to say, look, we need to rethink what's happening in tourism. And this is, I think, a very interesting quote that comes and says, COVID has exposed the emptiness of destination slogans, the silliness of destination branding, whilst amplifying the importance of a destination's reputation and behavior. And I think that's a crucial idea for us to hold on to this afternoon. We're going to be judged in the future by our tourists in the future about the way in which we behave and about the way in which we consider our reputation. As Jacinda Ardern says, you will know us by our deeds, how we reacted during COVID, how we behaved during COVID, and how we will behave coming out in the regrowth of tourism. And this is reflected in a new language that we're seeing in tourism. And again, please look at these words, because these words provide you with the new lexicon, the new glossary of terms that we're going to see in tourism. The World Tourism Organization has already announced that trust will be the new currency of the new normal. So the new language wrapping around destinations is that destinations need to be admired, desired, loved, better managed, more respected, developed in a collaborative way, safe, secure, and trusted. That's an interesting set of words. And when we look at the new language associated with our visitors, language that is now being used around the world to talk about the tourist and what the tourist is saying about our destinations, we see similar vocabulary. The tourist wants to be included and co-collaborative in the way in which destinations are developed. They want to be involved. The tourist wants to be trusted. They want to be invited to a destination. So maybe we've seen the end of marketing. We're going to shift to a new way of engaging with tourists. The tourists want to be better advised, better managed, and they too want to be respected and heard. So there's a whole new relationship beginning to build between the destination and the guest. In Wales here, Visit Wales has produced what they call addo. Addo is a Welsh word meaning a promise. And the addo is available to tourism operators, to destinations, to communities, and to the tourist. And it's "we promise to Wales." Very interesting, implied new kind of contractual relationship. In Greater Palm Springs, they've produced "our pledge to you." Our pledge to you, the visitor, our pledge to you, our community. And Iceland has had a pledge of this nature for at least 2 years. And we already know that tomorrow's tourists will care. They will care about the environment, they care about the places they visit, they care about themselves, and they care about the people in the places they will visit. And they are caring more about what is stated in the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So what we're moving to is destinations that will become important because you do things that I care about. You're no longer just destinations that are different, destinations that discount, destinations that are known for good things. You're destinations that I care about and I love. And the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. So what will we care about? We will care about safe, secure hygiene, health and well-being, hyper-local food, drink, art, craft. We will care about traveling with purpose to improve lives, ours, yours in the tourism business and the community. We will care and seek out open spaces, care about nature and its stewardship. There's a surge of adventure and exploration. We will do things that are right and good, and we expect the destinations to do things that are right and good. And we're increasingly trusting word of mouth as the reason we find out about places. Behind all of this, I think we're going to see a move to much more radical simplicity in the experiences we want and the betterment of both self and the wider community. We will travel for the betterment of self, as exhibited by this wonderful sign outside of a fish shop in Lyme Regis in Dorset, and this sign from a shop in Slovenia advocating our search for our grandma's recipes. So radical simplicity leading to betterment of self with often quite profound messages. This is the Peace Bell just north of Riva del Garda in Trentino in Italy. And it's a visitor attraction. It's made from the metals of 100 cannon donated to Italy following the First World War. And it rings every night 100 chimes to remind us of all the conflicts in the world and the people who've perished. And it's a fabulous attraction. And it makes a profound statement, the kind of which I think we're going to be seeking more in the future. So we're on a threshold. We're dwellers on a threshold. Ian Rankin, writing in Lit Up Inside, the lyrics of Van Morrison, says Morrison is talking for all of us, poised throughout our lives between what we have already experienced and, in a sense, the fear and uncertainty of what might lie ahead. And of course, that's where we're at now. And we're taking the time now to review, reflect, reset, refresh, renew, rethink, reimagine, regrow, reorganize the tourism industry. So what does all of this mean for gateway towns, for Killarney, for Limerick, in terms of the form and function that you play? Well, these are some interesting quotes. The World Travel and Tourism Council did a review of gateway communities recently, as did some researchers in the States. And they remind us that the gateway communities, Killarney, Limerick, others on the Wild Atlantic Way, you are portals for our most cherished landscapes. You define the experience for many, and set the tone for us all. Often hip towns to rest up, fuel up, gear up for a visit to a national park. These gateway towns can make or break a trip, and the best national parks have great gateway towns. Let's just have a look at national parks and what are known across Europe as national amenity regions, referred to a few years ago as islands of hope. Well, just think about how important national parks are in the context of the trends we've just been looking at. National parks, globally recognized, highly respected, high-profile brands with highly sought-after attributes, strongly ethical in their whole approach to land management and managing visitors. They give us great images of open space, big landscapes and places to wander. They're symbols of naturalness, wildness, and biodiversity. They exhibit responsible stewardship, environmentally friendly agriculture, and organic production. They're sentinels of our culture and heritage, and they have implied quality on every dimension. And they're depositories of ideas about conservation and our collective memory, our place in this world. So what does that mean then if we put national parks and all of their attributes together with gateway towns? Well, this is what our research is showing, that the gateway towns are the base camp, the launch pad for adventure and activity in those natural spaces. They're the kind of outdoor town. What happens in the gateway towns needs to have synergy, resonance, and reflect in many ways the national park offer. They're the kind of mirror of the national park. They need to have commensurate quality and shared values that are present in the national park. So that's kind of addressing the mind. They need to have visual and psychological links and cues within the gateway town to connect with the national parks. That's the kind of soul. And they have to have physical and functional connections. That's the body. And together, there's a kind of balance between being both the antidote to the outdoor and being the mirror of the outdoor. So the expectation of rest, fuel up, and so on means comfort, relaxation, and entertainment, but also at the same time, being a mirror image. So the implications of all of that has to be a much closer working relationship between national parks and the gateway community. Common strategy, common vision, a clear approach together to destination management, less marketing perhaps, and much more relationship and awareness building, a balanced product offer, and for the gateway towns to have a nuanced fit for purpose to meet the needs of an increased demand for outdoor activity. So, simple things like equipment storage, bike wash and repair, early breakfast because people want to get out into the countryside, access to specialist guides, specialist retail, specialist transportation. So new partnerships, new collaborations, new ways of working. And the gateway towns are all around the national parks that we're familiar with. For Yosemite, it's Fresno, Merced, Sonora. Grand Canyon has Flagstaff and Williams. Cairngorms in Scotland, Aviemore, Grantown-on-Spey. Lake District in England, Keswick, Kendal and Windermere, and the Finnish archipelago, Turku and Naantali. And I just want to highlight these three gateway communities for their relevant and respective national parks. This is a highly visual bit of the presentation, and I just want you to pick up some of the highlights that I think these places do well in terms of this relationship, and think about some of the things that they're doing and how it could be applied to Killarney and to Limerick. So first of all, and I'll get through this very quickly, Zellamsee in Austria as the gateway to the Haute Marne National Park. Here we see the location of the Haute Marne, and Zellamsee is located just off of its northern flanks. And so Zellamsee exhibiting in mirror terms the sort of things you would expect to do in the wider landscape, as well as providing that rest, relaxation, and comfort to go with it. What Zellamsee does particularly well is the direct transportation links in modern public transport and replica historic public transport between the town and the national park, and they collectively produce the destination card to allow you to get discounts and so on. And close to the gateway is a national park introductory centre, the National Park 360 degrees. And within Zellamsee itself, the beginning of making this connection between contemporary culture and nature and wildness, giving a platform to introduce these types of ideas within the gateway town and within the national park. In Bregenz and Bregenzerwald in Austria again, lots of good practice there. We see a gateway town on Lake Constance serving a natural amenity region of an area running inland involving some 21 different communities, where you would expect to find all of these usual types of organic, typically Austrian activities associated with agriculture. But then the connection between the town and the countryside being reflective in a joint vision for exploring nature through contemporary art and architecture. And we see it in the town of Bregenz. We see modern contemporary architecture throughout the natural amenity area. We see the idea of architecture and the art of building in the environment and sculpture in the environment becoming a linkage, even down to the detail of every one of those 21 villages having to design a new bus shelter in the context of this agreed vision and strategy. And then finally, before we get on to our speakers from Slovenia and Jackson Hole, I'm just going to take you to St. David's in Pembrokeshire. St. David's being the gateway town to the north part of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park, and within it, a community that is diverse in terms of its product offer, but where the connections with the national park are extremely strong. There's a St. David's Peninsula app, which focuses on the national park. There's a flexi bus service, a stop and join and get on, get off local bus service. There's a national park ranger base in the city. There's networks of paths running in and out of the gateway city, and there's direct links to the coastal path. But significantly in St. David's, they play very strongly to the idea of made in. So clearly it's the cathedral city of the patron saint of Wales, but they then play on local art, famous artists, local inventions of activities that were born and bred in St. David's, and local produce. And at the heart of it is a local person investing heavily in converting traditional historic assets into five-star accommodation. The local castle, the local sanctuary, once associated with the cathedral, and a former lighthouse and tower and windmill. And that's now the Retreats Group, born and bred in St. David's. And the celebration that goes with that of the personalities that then lead the vision and strategy. From the wonderfully named Cleopatra Brown, who invented coast steering, local artists, the bishop, the architect, and the local weavers and activity guide. So, pulling all of that together is a statement about destination management. The idea that for the gateway towns to work with their national parks, they have to be managed collaboratively. And the World Tourism Organization has recently stated destination management, the most important job in tourism. So that's the overview, a very quick take on what's happening in gateway towns and their characteristics and their relationship to national parks and natural amenity regions.